Hello, welcome to MX Network News. I'm Doshon Farad. Here at the network, we enjoy highlighting black people who are doing phenomenal things, especially our young people. An 18-year-old college student has been elected to serve as mayor of a small East Arkansas city, becoming one of the youngest people to serve as a city's top leader in the U.S. Jalen Smith, who is black, was elected mayor of Early in Tuesday's runoff election, winning 235 votes to Nebe Matthews' 183, according to complete but unofficial results. He's among the youngest mayors elected in the United States and would be the youngest member of the African American Mayors Association.
First, I want to improve public safety here. Secondly, tear down abandoned houses, transportation here for the community, bring a grocery store here.
Everything has been cordial. If I can help him do anything, he would. I'll do it, and likewise with him.
Phyllis Dickerson, chief executive officer of the association, said that the association's current youngest member is Cleveland Mayor Justin Bibb, who was 35. Smith is among a handful of people elected mayor before turning 20, including Michael Sessions and John Tyler Hammonds, who was elected mayor of Muskogee, Oklahoma in 2008 when he was 19. Smith, who graduated from Earl High School in May, campaigned on improving public safety and bringing new businesses, including a grocery store, to the city of about 1,800 people 25 miles northwest of Memphis, Tennessee. He is a student at Arkansas State University Mid-South in West Memphis, Arkansas. The family of a black woman who was fatally shot in her home by a former Fort Worth, Texas police officer in 2019 said they've been waiting for justice for over 3 years. Tatiana Jefferson's sister, Ashley Carr, said it's surreal to finally see the case go to trial. Opening statements began on Monday in the trial of former police officer Aaron Dean, who was charged with murder after fatally shooting Jefferson in her Fort Worth, Texas home on October 12, 2019. Dean was responding to a concerned neighbor's request to check on Jefferson's well-being after noticing her house's front door open at night, according to police. Dean pleaded not guilty to the charges. Though some of the 12 selected jurors are non-white, none are black, which drew backlash and prompted protests in 2019. The trial so far has hinged on the handgun in Jefferson's hand right before Dean shot her. During opening arguments, his defense attorney, Miles Brissett, argued Dean was acting in self-defense after seeing Jefferson's silhouette in the window holding a firearm with a green laser pointed directly at him. The prosecution, on the other hand, argued Dean couldn't have seen her gun in the split second before he opened fire. The trial's first witness was Zion Carr, Jefferson's then 8-year-old nephew, who was playing video games and cooking hamburgers with his aunt right before Dean shot her in their house. During questioning, Carl, who was 11 years old, was asked to recount the traumatic events from that night, testifying that his aunt had never raised the gun from her side.
My name is Zion Carr.
How did you think she was hurt?
Because she was crying and just shaking.
What were you thinking?
I was thinking, is it a dream?
Ed Krause, the Fort Worth police chief at the time of the shooting, who has since retired, said in 2019 that Dean's conduct was in violation of multiple police department policies, including, quote, our use of force policy, our de-escalation policy, and unprofessional conduct. Ashley Carr said she and her family have tried to keep the momentum going to ensure Jefferson's name is not forgotten, including speaking at the White House and U.S. Senate. Jefferson's siblings also started a nonprofit called the Tatiana Project that strives to promote activities among urban youth. They've even hosted a free summer camp where children could build their own computers and robots. More than a dozen protesters gathered in Bowling Green, Kentucky this past Saturday afternoon to demand justice for brother Emmett Till, a 14-year-old black boy who was murdered in 1955 in Mississippi after a white woman, Carolyn Bryant, lied and said he whistled at her. A small group gathered in Kentucky because the woman who accused him of whistling at her, which ultimately led to his death at the hands of 2 of her family members, lives in an apartment complex in Bowling Green. A few months ago, while searching the basement of a Mississippi courthouse, someone found an arrest warrant for Carolyn Bryant's arrest, which was never served. Till was murdered by Bryant's husband, Roy Bryant, and his half-brother, J.W. Miller. They were both found not guilty by an all-white jury after a 5-day trial. The protest, which numbered around 24, was led by a black organization named True Healing Under God, or Thug, and was attended by groups as well as co-organized by the new Black Panther Party led by Attorney Malik Zulu Shabazz and the Lion of Judah Armed Forces, along with others that came to protest at the last known location of Bryant and asked police to serve the arrest warrant that was found. According to protesters, the warrant was not served because Bryant is already old. But activist John C. Barnett, who organized the protest, believes this should not be an excuse for justice to be served. While speaking to protesters, he said, quote, "The same punishment that gave Bill Cosby, they should give her. In this country, it don't matter if you're 87, 97, or 107, you do wrong. Then you need to face that elephant in the room, and that's getting justice."
The warrant that was found in June stated that Carolyn Bryant was there, charged with kidnapping as well as accessory to murder. That's right. Why Carolyn Bryant did not get charged?
Priscilla Sterling, who is Till's cousin, was also in Bowling Green. She said, quote, "Justice was never served. Our family is not happy. I just want you to know that it was white supremacy that freed Carolyn Bryant." The warrant that was found in June stated that Carolyn Bryant was there charged with kidnapping as well as accessory to murder. Why Carolyn Bryant did not get charged? While Barnett was speaking to reporters, an unidentified member of the new Black Panther Party was arrested. Police said he had an outstanding arrest warrant. This is what they need to be doing to Carolyn Bryant Dunham. The protest stayed calm throughout the day. The group went from the back of the apartment complex to the front and even the mall across the street. They were met with squad cars, Bowling Green police officers, and private security. Earlier in the day, Bowling Green police sent an alert that there was a threat to people that were going to the protest.
The specific threat is threatening to shoot anyone who is protesting and anyone helping the protesters. As of this moment, we have not been able to determine the validity of this threat. However, we feel it is important to alert our citizens.
According to the sheriff of the Warren County Sheriff's Office, the threat was directed toward the protesters and anybody helping them. The lawyer in the case, Dr. Malik Zulu Shabazz, said they will present a federal lawsuit and an injunction in Mississippi next week asking the arrest warrant be served. He also said they want the Department of Justice to reopen the case and stop playing with this one. Michael Avenatti, the once swaggering celebrity lawyer who was undone by his proclivity for embezzlement and fraud, was sentenced on Monday to 14 years in prison for dodging taxes and stealing millions of dollars from clients. His sentencing by U.S. District Judge James V. Selner in Santa Ana concludes the last of 3 federal prosecutions of the former attorney, who gained notoriety for representing adult film star Stormy Daniels in her legal battles against former President Trump. Selner said Avenatti had accomplished good things in his life, but had also done great evil. He ordered Avenatti to pay nearly $8 million in restitution to his victims and $3.2 million to the government. Avenatti, who is 51 years old, is already serving 5 years in prison for his extortion and fraud convictions at 2 trials in New York. Selner ordered him to serve the 14 years he received in the latest case after the 5-year sentence is complete. Federal prosecutors in California had asked Selner to order Avenatti locked up for an additional 17 years and 6 months. Avenatti pleaded guilty in June to 4 counts of wire fraud for stealing money from clients and 1 count of obstructing collection of federal payroll taxes from his Seattle coffee business, now defunct. Avenatti also admitted stealing from a $2.75 million settlement that his client Alexis Gardner obtained from her former boyfriend Hassan Whiteside, a pro basketball player then with the Miami Heat. Avenatti used most of the money to buy a private jet. Selner has approved the government's request to confiscate the 8-seat Honda HA420 plane. Avenatti, who represented himself in court despite the loss of his law license, had asked Selner to impose no more than 6 years in prison that will run concurrently with the 5 years he is serving for his New York conviction. The California Reparations Task Force gave their first estimation on possible reparations for African Americans in California last Thursday, coming to an estimated figure of $569 billion of reparations based on past housing discrimination practices in California. The task force was first put together in late 2020 following Governor Gavin Newsom signing AB 3121 to establish it. They are currently looking for what possible reparations, monetary or otherwise, to recommend to give to African Americans living in California for past discriminatory practices and slavery, despite the latter not occurring in California following statehood in 1850. While initially encompassing all people of African descent, the group of those qualified to receive reparations was significantly narrowed in March, when the task force voted to limit the possible reparations only to those who are an African American descendant of an enslaved person or free African American living in the U.S. prior to the end of the 19th century. Last Thursday, first estimates on possible reparations were released. According to the task force, qualified African American residents, who make up slightly less than 7% of the state's population, would be eligible to receive $223,200 each, or roughly $569 billion in total. The figure comes from the housing wealth gap or discrimination policies in place between 1933 and 1977. If the figures stay the same in the final report and are approved, the reparations given out would be the most the country has seen since the 1860s. Well, this next story has got to be a joke. Providence, Rhode Island has launched a $10 million reparations program to address its long history of racism against black residents. But here's the catch. It'll also be open to white people as well. According to the Washington Post, Providence created a reparations program following the Minneapolis police killing of George Floyd in May of 2020. As demonstrators flooded the streets across the nation, Democratic Mayor Jorge Elorza issued an executive order establishing a Truth, Reconciliation, and Reparations Committee and entrusted the African American Ambassador Group with producing a report that would provide the foundation for reparations. Although it may differ from what some had hoped for, supporters of the initiative are optimistic that the additional funding will benefit underdeveloped areas. The $10 million effort will finance several social initiatives, including small company accelerators, home ownership and financial literacy programs, and workforce training. However, it's funded by federal COVID-19 recovery money, which must be used race neutrally, of course. Providence residents who identify as Black or Native American are automatically eligible. The city has also established other financial obligations that may cover almost half of its white citizens, infuriating critics concerned about how much of the funds will go to the Black residents, who make up 12% of the population. In addition to forming a reparations group, the report called for a formal municipal apology for African enslavement. Still, several people closely involved in the program's creation are worried about how it is being described. Detractors are also skeptical of programs that don't offer direct cash payments to the descendants of enslaved people, which Black activists believe should be a crucial component of reparations. Here at the network, we love highlighting Black people who do amazing things, especially Black women. Though Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat about 800 miles away in Montgomery, Alabama, in more than 6 decades ago, the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Area Transit Authority celebrated her contributions to history 67 years later. On December 1st, 1955, a bus driver asked Parks and 3 other Black passengers to give up their seats in order to make room for the white passengers boarding. Parks, who was leading the youth division of the NAACP's Montgomery branch at the time, refused to give up her seat and was arrested. The 42-year-old Parks' refusal and subsequent arrest sparked the Montgomery bus boycott by design, a movement that ultimately led to the desegregation of buses in Alabama and served as a major landmark for the civil rights movement. On December 1st, WMATA saved a seat on every bus for Parks. The Transit Association also allowed residents to visit the Anacostia Metro station from 7:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. to take in the Rosa Parks bus. The service operations manager added Washingtonians of all ages can still appreciate Parks' contribution to this day. Tina Turner breaks silence on son Rodney's death with somber tribute. The legendary singer shared a brief message for Rodney on Instagram following news of his passing. Tina Turner is sharing a somber tribute for her late son, Ronnie, who became an ancestor at the age of 62 on December 8th. The singer shared a black and white photo of herself with her eyes closed, looking despondent on Instagram after news of his passing broke on December 9th. In it, she wrote the caption, quote, "Ronnie, you left the world far too early. In sorrow, I close my eyes and think of you, my beloved son." Adrienne Warren, who played Turner in the Tina Turner musical on the West End and Broadway, wrote, quote, "I love you so much. I just want to give you the biggest hug. I'm so sorry." Singer Debbie Gibson said, quote, "Sending love and condolences." Turner previously lost her eldest son, Craig, to suicide in 2018, as well as ex-husband Ike in 2007. And of course, we here send condolences. I'm Doshon Farad. You're watching MX Network News.
Beat ass.